morning. How are you?
I am good. I see you have traveled to the office today. How crazy is that?
I know. I gotta tell you, I had to actually wear shoes today instead of my fuzzy bunny slippers, so it's kind of a bummer.
Yep, I'm still at the house though today. My office has been given up to, I think, Tracy. Tracy now has my old office. So, for you guys out there who are joining us, my real source is undergoing some construction at the office. So that's why this was originally going to be an in-person and it's going to be a hybrid class. We were supposed to be both in the office and having people on the webinar and people in the class today, but that's not really cool to do when you got construction hanging around. So we
Yeah, and I
opted.
gotta say, it looks like that out there.
It's been a few weeks since I've been there. The last time it was like your office was, they were putting plumbing in to turn it into a restroom. So
Yeah, right now it's got stuff hanging from the ceiling and no walls, so it's kind of a hot mess in there when you come in.
that is crazy. Well, hopefully in about another 45 days, we'll be able to get some classes. Besides, we know it's the spring selling season for you guys, and getting to the class is about the last thing you really want to do. So we've realized this is the quick and easy way to do things. And of course, Colleen and I are always available to do one-on-ones. We'd love to get out to your offices, do either, your staff meeting, answer any of those questions. Remember, I think what calculus teacher. There are no dumb questions. Like seriously, every question I had in calculus was dumb. So
Yeah,
it's
and Debbie, you should tell them about how if we come to their office, you've worked out some exciting news with elective Con Ed credits for some of our
yeah.
classes.
So this class right here, this is the short one. It's the 1 hour version. Of course, Colleen, it's usually about an hour 15, hour 20. We get an hour of credit for Con Ed when you're in person though, not on the webinars. But if you want to take it to your office, we can do a 2 hour class or the 1 hour class with the Paragon tips and tricks. Get yourself some elective credit, which is always nice. The
Yes.
Collab Center is a great class. It's also approved for an hour of Con Ed. So it's just a nice way to get out to our membership. And of course, because that's where they usually ask those air quote dumb questions. Like we said, even some of our trainers, like Debbie, I've been looking for this for an hour. Where is this? I'm like, it's right there. Like, really? Why didn't I just call you? I'm like, yeah, why don't you just call? If I don't know the answer, I'll bet you I know Colleen does. All right,
Between you and I, we seem to always figure it out, don't we?
yes, indeed. I think you and I have a few years in real estate.
Yeah, not saying how many, right?
No, 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 no. Put it this way, we are not realtor emeritus status yet, so
This is good. This, yes.
that might be a few years. Well, I'm going to be off in the background today. You have the wonderful Colleen Delange teaching our Paragon tips and tricks, those time-saving tips and tricks that you might be doing the long cut, as my eldest said when he was itty bitty. Mom, are we taking the long cut? I'm like, as a matter of fact, yes, we are. Not the shortcut.
But that makes sense. That's good. Smart
Out of the
thinking.
out of the mouths of babes. Yeah. So I'll be in the background answering any questions. I've also uploaded handouts in your GoToWebinar panel, which should be on the right side of your panel. So just go ahead and download those. And of course, Colleen will show you where to find those. All right. So have a great class, Colleen. Everybody, great to see all names on the board here. And I'll be talking to you soon.
So thanks, Debbie.
Yep.
So as Debbie mentioned, really this whole class was developed by Debbie and I around tips and tricks, things that we thought our members maybe were calling in tech support, or little tips that we came across actually using the software that we thought, wow, people should know about this. This is really going to make it easier. Myself being a licensed realtor for 23 years now, there were some things I would come across in the program and I thought, oh my gosh, why didn't anyone tell me this was here? So this was really a brainstorm between Debbie and I, and we said, you know what, hey, we're going to point out all of the tips and tricks that you didn't know were there when you're searching. How do you make searching faster? How do you make it easier? So One of the challenges that I faced as an agent was I was finding the consumer out there was finding properties faster than I was. And I was supposed to be the trusted professional. They were going on other sites like realtor.com and Zillow, and they were able to pull up 10 and 15 addresses. And I wanted to know how to be able to do that same thing. So we've built some cool things. Some of it is actually newer on the newer side in the last year or two that have been released to give us, the agents, the advantage to let us show more information to the consumer than they could see on IDX and syndication sites. Not only that, but being able to search 10, 15 property addresses in one field, hitting enter, and then with one click being able to text all of those out. And that was really the whole purpose of some of the fields that we built. So I'm going to turn off my very fuzzy, messy here. I'm using kind of a cheaper camera than I normally do at home. So I'm actually in the building. As we mentioned, there's a lot of construction going on. So I do apologize if you hear any kind of bumping or thumping behind me. But I'm going to take you on a tour of Paragon. We're going to start off with some simple things, but then we're going to go into some more advanced tips and tricks. So as Debbie mentioned, jump in with any questions that you have today. Just in case you don't know how to add questions, because we do have a couple new people on the call, if you go to the right side of your screen, it's probably minimized. It might look like an orange or red arrow on the right-hand side. If you open that up, that will expand your GoToWebinar panel. There's a place that you can put questions right in there. Don't feel like you have to hold all your questions to the end. I always hate that. I love when people ask questions. It makes it more interactive. And two, if we hold all our questions to the end, I'm probably 10 screens away. So please feel free to type those questions in as soon as you have them, and then it will alert Debbie and I, and we can go ahead and address them. Debbie will actually ask questions too. So a lot of times if you're typing them in, she'll say, hey, Colleen, we have a question, and then I can kind of cover that in more detail too. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Again, I'm going to turn off my fuzzy, messy hair, and we're going to get into it. So we're going to start off today with some basic searching things. So if you are looking at this screen, and your screen may, by the way, look a little bit different than mine, it's just because you can customize Paragon. And that is one of the unique things about this MLS system, is that you can actually add fields or remove fields that make it easier for you to search. So one of the main questions I get is, well, Colleen, how do I find things faster? Well, if you're not familiar, and quite honestly, I didn't see this for a long time because it's kind of up at the top of your screen. But if you are trying to find a property quickly, let's say that you are looking for a property at 1941 Orleans, and you just got the call from a buyer on the phone. I want to be able to find that property quickly without having to put in a lot of detail. And that's really what the power search is set up for. The power search at the top is where you want to find one address, one agent, one MLS number. Now, here's a little tip that I did not know. You can actually add up to 30 MLS numbers in that power search, and it will pull them up. Now, to be honest, I would probably never do that. But if you have one or two, you can actually enter the MLS numbers. Just make sure you've separated them by commas, and you could actually pull up multiple MLS numbers in one field. Now, as you can see here, there's a couple properties on Orleans. So if I am looking to find, maybe it closed a few times, as you can see, it's actually a condo building. Maybe I'm looking for a particular unit number. If I wanted to see all of those records, I could actually click on where it says listings 10, and I could bring up all of those records. Maybe you even want to sort them. You could click on status and sort them. So the actives are with the actives, closed are with the closed. And then you can actually find the property record you're looking for. Now, why I bring this up is because if you just got a call and somebody's calling you for information very quickly, most of the time they're calling on an active or pending listing, right? So active and pendings are always up at the top. If you're looking for that particular record, simply click on it. Again, we're looking for actives and pendings. That's going to open up that property, and I can very quickly see it right from here. Okay, so think of that power search as an easy way to find one property fast, one agent fast, or even a couple of MLS numbers, but it's really designed to help you find that information quickly. Now, if you're looking at your screen and you're thinking, well, Colleen, my screen doesn't look like that. It's set up different. Well, that's because generally when I teach, I am right-handed and I'm usually at a lector. So I am usually trying to use a mouse on my right side. So it's a little bit easier for me to set this up in an easier fashion. Plus, I also have a little OCD, so I kind of like things in my own order because it just works better in my brain that way. So if you wanted to change the layout of your dashboard, all you have to do is grab the top bar as you're seeing here, and you can move your quick search to the right side or the left side. Now, here was my complaint when I started using Paragon. I did not want to always have to scroll down every time I wanted a particular field, right? That doesn't even make sense. So for me, I wanted to have everything I needed right up here at the top. Here's another tip. If you are using the quick search, you can also tab through your quick search to enter information quickly. So it'll take you right to that next field. There are certain things that I do every day though. My quick search, I might be talking to someone and want to find a 3-bedroom home in Sterling Heights in a certain price range while I'm talking to someone. This is designed, the quick search is designed not specifically for one property, but if you're trying to find a few properties fast. Maybe you are on the phone with a buyer, they just called in and they've got 5 or 6 addresses they found on a site somewhere, and you want to quickly type those in. That's really the main purpose of the quick search. So just kind of a recap where we're going. The power search up here is great for one property, one agent, one MLS number, super easy. The quick search is designed to help you find multiple addresses or a few houses in a particular city, or quickly pull up the map to see maybe where they're calling in on. For me, not only do I like my quick search to be exposed, but I also watch certain markets. I have a few buyers right now looking in the Sterling Heights area. So as I'm going into the MLS, I may not be in every single day. So I kind of use this market monitor to watch specific areas. So I'm going to help you set that up so you can actually see specific areas that are important to you. Now, of course, you can save searches for your clients, but the market monitor is really designed if you are commonly looking at a particular area and you don't want to every day go in and set up a search and it's not specific to one client. So this is kind of just the markets you're watching. And I don't know about you guys right now, but I have been really challenged with finding inventory. So I want to make sure that every time I log into Paragon, I am seeing right in front of me what's going on in those target areas I'm looking at. So again, I want that market monitor to keep track of things so that I don't miss any properties. Last week, I wrote an offer, and in 24 hours, there were 26 showings, believe it or not, and 13 offers coming in. So it tells you still what market we're seeing. There is just not enough inventory out there. And so when a new listing comes onto the market, I want to be one of the first ones to see it. All right, so I want my market monitor front and center. I'm also going to be honest, when I'm scheduling showings, I want to see how many appointments have been confirmed right away. If I have showings on my listing, I have a condo listed right now. If I have showings coming in, I want to see that in the showing time widget. I do not want to always have to scroll all the way down to see that. Now, I'm going to be totally honest with you that down here, this Paragon News, that's usually up at the top. That is not something that we need to see every day. I mean, it's great and it tells you when new stuff comes out, and that's wonderful, but that's not a tool we use every day. So what I'm saying is don't be afraid to customize this so that it works best for you. So again, for me, in my real life searching, I want to have my contacts next. I want to see today my client went in and favorited 4 houses. That means there's 4 houses I want to schedule appointments on. And I want to be able to see that right here, right in what I'm looking at. I want to see how many times they logged in. I want to see how many favorites they favorited today. I want to see that right in my contact activity. So we're going to talk about that more too. So when I came to my Real Source and started doing a couple classes for them, one of the things that I found challenging was, what if that buyer just found 10 addresses on Realtor.com, or they just found 10 addresses on Zillow? As I mentioned, one of the challenges for me was, why are they finding it faster than I was? Because I was doing it a single property at a time. What a mess. I'm writing down MLS numbers. It just really didn't make sense. That's when Brian, who is our, we call him our wizard around here, really, really smart, writes code. And he said, Colleen, so tell me what you want. And I said, I want a place, an address field that I can put 20 or 30 addresses in at a time, find everything, and with one click, send them over to a buyer via text or via email so that we can be looking at the same things together and I can literally find the information as they're rattling it off. But I also wanted something else. I wanted to be able to copy and paste those if I got them in the form of an email. So let's say you have a buyer who just sent you 20 addresses in an email. I want to be able to copy and paste those right into the full addresses field, pull them all up, and again, send them out to that buyer and go through them with them. So what we created is, and it's a little confusing because there's an address field that automatically comes in your quick search. It's just a plain address field. You can type in an address. But what I would recommend is if you do not have the field called full addresses, you definitely want to add that in. Let me show you what it does. So in the full addresses field, if you are looking for, let's say 123 Cherry Street, maybe you're looking for 456 West Street, maybe you're looking for 41539 Wessel, you can see I'm literally just hitting enter after each address, and you can actually add up to 30 into that field. Now, the cool thing about this field is whether it's Cherry Road, Cherry Street, Cherry Drive, it basically has a built-in wildcard behind the word Cherry. So no matter what the end is, whether it's Cherry Street, Cherry Drive, Cherry Way, it's still going to pull that up for you. There's also another little tip. Let's say that you have a client just called you on a property on Gratiot. You don't know if it's northbound Gratiot or southbound Gratiot. So you can also add in an asterisk before the word to find directionals. So let's say that it's northbound Gratiot. It's of course going to pull that up for me. Maybe I don't know if it's southbound or northbound. It's going to pull up both. If there's a 123 northbound or southbound Gratiot, it's going to pull that. Now you don't have to add the asterisk behind the street name, because it's already there for you. It will automatically pull up any streets, ways, place, courts, all of those will be pulled in. But if it is a directional and you're just not sure, was it northbound Gratiot or southbound Gratiot, that's where that asterisk right before the street will come in really handy. Okay. Now, obviously, if they're calling you on these, they're probably either active or pending. So maybe I'll filter them down. So I'm only seeing active and pending. Now it's only going to show me those streets, of course, that are active or pending. So, and I just made up some street names, so I don't even know what these are. But you get the general idea. So we're going to pretend that I've pulled up 123 Cherry Street, 456 West Street. I've now got my properties pulled up. I want to be able to quickly send them over to the buyer that I'm talking to. So I'm going to go ahead and hit my search button. That's then going to pull up those records. And I now, with one click, can send these over via text or via email, or maybe I just want to print them out. Maybe I'm going to show them these properties, but it pulls up all of those results. As you can see, I pulled up quite a few. It's going to pull all of those results very quickly so that you can go right up to the share button here. You can share them via text. You can share them with the Collab Center link, which we're going to talk more about, or you could simply email them from here. Okay, so makes it easier when you're trying to find multiple properties very quickly. And it's, remember, you still have the advantage of seeing the seller's disclosures, the lead-based paint disclosures. You're in control of having more information than they now can see on IDX sites, which I'm very thankful for because we're the trusted professionals, right? We should be able to get that information faster, be able to quickly text it out and see even more information than they can get on other sites. That's the whole point. So one of the other things that I want to point out is if you do not have the full addresses in your quick search, or if you find that you're always scrolling to the bottom in your quick search to add something that you commonly use, like bedrooms or year built, or you can change that. And basically, most of the screens in Paragon are customizable, meaning that you can click on the gear at the top this little edit widget, and it allows you to control the order that the fields are in, as well as what fields maybe are important to your business. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click on that field. And as you can see, when I do that, the left side is basically all of the fields that are available to you. Over here, the right side is everything that's currently in my quick search. So I'm just going to remove full addresses for a second so you can see how to add it in. So if I don't have full addresses here, all I want to do is I want to go up to my find box, type in the word full, click full addresses, add that in. And the beautiful thing here is if I don't want it always at the bottom, if I don't want to scroll all the way down every single time, I can grab it and drag it to where I want. Maybe I want bedrooms up here at the top with bathrooms. All you have to do is drag them in the order that you want them. And then all you have to do is hit apply. That is going to save your preferences. So the next time you log in, full addresses, as you can see, is right here at the top. Now I can go ahead and, again, enter up to 30 addresses in one specific field. All right, so hopefully that kind of makes sense. So just to recap, Power Search is great for one property. Want to find a few properties quickly, maybe you're on the phone with someone, that's really what you want the quick search for. You also want to have your market monitor set up. You probably want to have your contacts displayed so you can see if your client goes in and they favorite something or there's something new that they're interested in, we can see all of that here. All right. So now what about the traditional searches? So let's face it, the most popular search that we're doing is the traditional search because we're looking for more detail. So let's say Win has a buyer and that buyer is looking for a 2-car attached garage with 3 bedrooms. They'd like to purchase it on a land contract financing. You can be a lot more specific going into the traditional searching. So let's actually talk about that next. So right here, when you are searching anything in the MLS, with the exception of taxes, you're really going to go to the search icon at the top in your Paragon screen. By the way, if your colors are different, you can change these. They have different themes. They have some really fun themes too. But I'm going to go up to search. This is, of course, where I can search my inventory, maybe how much I've sold for the last year, 2 years, 3 years, whatever. You can adjust the dates. This is also where you can see your hot sheets. Now, I always get the same question right here. Well, Colleen, what's the difference between a hot sheet? So if you go to search, you'll see hot sheet and auto hot sheet. Basically, what the hot sheet is anything that may have had a price change, come back onto the market, maybe their status changed, maybe it's was pending, now it's gone back to active, but that's what the hot sheet is. The auto hot sheet basically remembers the last time that you've logged in, and it says, okay, I'm going to show you everything from that point forward. As you can see, I don't use that a whole lot, so it's got a previous date. But what it does is it basically just remembers when you've logged in last. Of course, under searching, this is where you can find your saved property searches as well. So if you have a client and you've saved a property search for him, I'm going to show you how to not only do that, but you can actually turn on the auto prospecting. And what that means is when you are setting up a search for a client, you can set it to go to what we call the collab center, which allows you to automatically send any new listings out to that client that meet their criteria. But if you wanted to go into the property searches that you've saved, you can also do that from here. But today we're going to kind of just do some run-of-the-mill tips and tricks. So we're going to say that we are searching for our buyer. And obviously, you're going to search under the type of class. If they're looking for vacant land, obviously, that's what you're going to choose. If you're looking for residential, you could choose that. There is also a multi-class at the bottom. And let me explain what that is. Let's say that Win is working with a buyer, and that buyer says, you know what, Win, if you find me a good fixer-upper, I'm really willing to look at that. But I'm also not opposed to buying vacant land and putting my own home on it. Well, that would require Win to set up 2 different searches, right? So instead of doing that, Win can do a multi-class search, and she can put everything for both of those classes into one search so that you're not recreating more work for yourself. Today, we're going to do kind of a run-of-the-mill single-family search. So I'm going to click on Search by Class, and now I'm going to enter that buyer's criteria. If you're new to Paragon, remember to the right of the field is a magnifying glass. Just tells you what that field is specifically calling out. So in this case, it's saying, okay, are you looking for a condo, a farm, or a single-family home? I'm going to say we're looking for a single-family home. You can also add things like I commonly add in zip code into my searching. If you'd like to add zip code, you could add that. You may not see that there now, but I promise you, I'm going to show you how to add these custom fields. And I'm going to show you a couple that have really helped me, especially when showing buyers around. So if I go down here, I've also added my full addresses to this search as well. In case I get a call and right in the middle of a search and I want to plug in some addresses, I can do that here. Or a specific buyer just sent you a bunch of addresses. Remember, you can also copy and paste. You just want to make sure that you have them separated with commas. That's all. Area, obviously. Now, here's something I did not know for a long time, and I always thought this was really, really helpful. So I kind of want to show you. So I did not know that there were 5 Clinton townships in the state of Michigan. Okay, so if you are looking for Clinton Township, how do you know which is the Clinton Township in Macomb County versus which is the Clinton Township up in Marquette? Becomes a little bit confusing, right? And you certainly don't want to pick the wrong Clinton Township, because then what happens is your buyer's not getting any homes in the area that he wanted, right? So remember, now thanks to data sharing, my Real Source members now have 97% of the state that they can see, which is meaning you're seeing all the Clinton townships. So how do you know which is the specific one you're looking for? So here's a quick tip. The first 2 numbers that you're looking at are actually a county identifier. Now, I am not smart enough to be able to identify all of the counties that way. So here's a quick tip. If you go down to the county field and you typed in Macomb County, I can see that the identifier for Macomb County is 50. So if I go back to the area field and I type in Clinton Township, I can see which Clinton Township I'm looking for by the 50 that I know that is going to start. That's going to be the Clinton Township in Macomb County. There's also an even simpler way to do this. So if you only want to see the Clinton Township in Macomb County, you could type in Macomb County, then go to your area field and type in Clinton Township. Now you're only seeing the one, it's filtering down to Macomb County. So now I'm only seeing that specific Clinton Township. Now I promise I'm going somewhere with this. I know you're probably thinking, well, what is your point? But let's pretend for a moment that you have a buyer and that buyer says, maybe they're looking in a large area. Maybe they're an investor that you're working with. And they say, you know what? I would really like to see everything in Macomb County, but I'm not interested in maybe 1 or 2 of the cities. So we're going to use Franca. So let's say Franca's working with an investor and they say, you know what? I really like everything in Macomb County, but I'm not interested in Centerline or Fraser. Okay. So instead of Franca having to go into the area, grabbing a map, typing in each individual city, what a pain that would be, right? Instead of having to do that, what if I told you there's a shortcut or a quick tip that will allow you to add everything in a county and just deselect the 1 or 2 they didn't want? Well, that's exactly what we're going to do. So what we're going to do first is we're going to click on the magnifying glass next to the area. Okay, so here's your quick tip. We just saw that Macomb County begins with 50. So I'm going to change this to begins with 50, enter. Now guess what just happened? I now see all 26 cities in Macomb County. I'm actually going to change this to 50 records. I can see them all on one page to make it nice and easy. Okay, so here are all the cities and townships in Macomb County. Now remember, Franca's buyer clearly said, I want everything except Fraser and except Centerline. Now watch what happens. When I hit save, Do you see how it just pulled in all the other cities in Macomb County and allowed me to just exclude the one or two they weren't interested in? So hopefully that makes sense. If you have an investor, maybe you're looking in two counties. You can do multiple counties that way. Maybe they're looking in Macomb and Oakland, and there's just a small area, two or three cities that they're not interested in. You can actually just deselect those particular cities, and it will populate everything else for you. All right, so hopefully you found that as helpful as I did, because again, I did not know that was there, and I was going in and pulling up a map, trying to find all of the cities for a particular county, and it really was not time efficient. This is a great way to pull up an entire county or counties and just remove a particular city. Okay, so again, just if you follow that step, I'm just going to take these out. If you follow that step, remember the biggest thing is just knowing what is that county identifier. So let's use Oakland County for a moment. I can see the identifier for Oakland County is 63. Same concept. I'm going to go over to the area field, click on that magnifying glass. I'm going to change this from contains to begins with 63. Again, that same concept. There are 64 cities in Oakland County. So I'm going to actually change the amount of records to see. So I get them all on one screen to make it nice and easy. And I'm going to say, okay, they liked everything in Macomb County, but maybe they're not interested in Clarkston or Beverly Hills. I can deselect those two. And again, I just auto-populated 62 cities with one click. Okay, so hopefully that makes some sense. If you have any questions, remember you can throw them in the questions box, or if you need to see it one more time, feel free to throw that in there too, and then we can cover those questions. All right, so what we're doing now is we're basically creating a search for our buyer that's going to automatically email our buyer anytime a new listing comes on the market with their criteria. And I'm telling you right now, it's really important to set your buyers up because there's just not enough inventory. And so when a new listing comes on the market, you want to make sure that buyer sees it right away. So the next thing I want to do is I want to go in and I want to decide what I want the buyer to see. Do I want them to see all actives? Well, there's kind of a thing you should know about doing all actives. If I go over here to the right where the magnifying glass is, maybe I don't want my buyers to see automatically accepting backup offers. I'm going to be honest, this is not my favorite status in the MLS because accepting backup offers, well, we've always done that. Red Book law says that we have to present all offers. So we've always shown offers when they come in. But what this ABO actually means is this is an active property. It's actively being shown. Buyers can see it on, Zillow and other places, but it really has an accepted offer on it already. So if I'm showing those, I really do need to explain to my buyer that, hey, don't get super excited about this particular house because there is a pending offer on it currently. Yes, we can go see it and we can hope that something falls through, but let's face it, in this market, that might be something you want to deselect, but it's completely your choice. Buyers do see them on places like, Zillow and Realtor.com. So it's really your choice, but you do want to have that conversation with them, just making sure that they're aware of what that is. You could also obviously put in a price range. Let's say this buyer is looking between, 3 and 360. I can put that in as well. And basically what I'm doing now is I'm going in and I'm just putting in what they're looking for. Maybe they're looking for a ranch style home. So I want to go to structure style and say they only want to see homes that are 1 story. Maybe they're looking for a minimum of 3 bedrooms. So I'm just going through the fields. And by the way, as I mentioned, you can also tab through the fields. So you can see it will just allow me to jump from the next field to the next. If I go to the garage field, maybe I know that they have to have a garage. But what if they need a 2-car attached garage? What if that's all that they want to see? Well, that's where we want to add in that extra level of detail. So I'm not sending them a bunch of detached garages when they clearly told me they didn't want that. So how do you add in that extra detail? So here's the tricks. So when it comes to the number of garage, there is minimum and maximum. So maybe I know they need a minimum of a 2-car garage. But where do I now find the attached? They're not interested in detached garages. Well, that's going to be in your features area. And features work like this. Features can be a must-have, so I have to have this or don't bother sending it to my buyer. Or must not have, meaning I had a client recently who, right before closing, she was in Macomb County. And in Macomb County, if you're not from there, we have a pass and fail well and septic where you have to actually have the septic tested and it has to pass. Anyway, long story short, she was going through a divorce, and right before closing, she found out she was going to have to pay to put in a raised engineered septic field in the amount of $17,000 because it failed. Unfortunately, the husband had led her to believe that the septic field was relatively new. It was not. It was actually over 20 years old and it was leaking like a sieve. So the problem was when she called me, she said, Colleen, do not even show me a house that is on a septic field. I don't want to ever have to maintain it or care for it. I don't even want to see it. So if there's something you wanted to exclude, like a septic system or maybe a pool, maybe they don't want a house with a pool, you can actually go into the must not have and type that in. But then there's also situations like must have one or more. Maybe you have a client who says, you know what, I either need to have a pole barn or a shed outside because I have a home business and I store stuff for the home business. So you can actually choose, it has to have at least one of those items before it will get sent out to your buyer automatically. Now you're probably like me and thinking, okay, well, how do I know what features are what? And there are so many different features. I think when I counted them, there were like 7,000 features, right? So if you want to go over to the magnifying glass, what it does is it categorizes the features. So for instance, if let's say that Jackie is showing a buyer around and the buyer said, I only want to see homes with a finished basement. And you send them 10 homes with an unfinished basement, they might be getting a new realtor because they've specifically said to you, I only want to see things with a finished basement. So if you go to basement type, I can say it must have a finished basement in order to go over to that client. Hopefully that makes sense. Let's use our garage example. So we're going to say that Suzanne says, you know what, I'm showing my buyer around, but they have specifically said they only want an attached garage. I can say, okay, they must have an attached garage for it to go out to that buyer. So you're simply just finding the category and then you're plugging that in so that they're only getting exactly what they're looking for. I have a buyer right now who wants to buy on a land contract. Unfortunately, it's making me a little crazy because it's not a great market for that. But if I wanted to specifically only send him things that they had land contract terms, well, I could go ahead and say, I'm only going to send my buyer things that have the land contract selected. All right. So it's an easy way to go in and give more detail. So you're sending your buyers out exactly what they're looking for. Okay, so funny story. I don't know why. I think it's the crazy fuzzy hair or something, but I seem to attract more crazy buyers than normal, or let's say challenging buyers. Let's say that. So I had a really nice client. We were sitting at the closing table, and she had mentioned to me that everything went so smooth. She had a sister who was also looking to purchase a home. And so she sent the sister to me, and I assumed that she was going to be relatively, hello, how are you?
Photobomb.
Hey, everybody.
Hi. I'm going to photobomb you.
Nice to see you.
Let's see you.
Even through the window.
Right.
See, that's the fun of doing it live. Bye. Have a good day. So the idea is you can actually be very specific on exactly what you're sending your buyer. So back to my story, at the closing table, working with this really, really nice client, she said, my sister's getting ready to buy a house. I'm so happy with everything. I'm going to send her to you. And I was so excited because I assumed the sister would be kind of like her, really nice, wonderful to work with, great experience. Not so much. The sister, actually, my second call with her, she said, Colleen, if you send me one more yellow-sided house, I'm going to get another agent. And first I thought she was kidding, because first she had never mentioned yellow siding as not liking it. Second of all, there is no button in the MLS that says, hey, take out all yellow siding. It doesn't exist. So for those challenging people, there is something called the agent preview, where you can actually turn on the agent preview. It sends it to you, the agent, first. So you have the ability then to go in and say, yes, I like this particular home, or no, I'm not interested in that particular home. But you have the option to decide if it's right for them. So that may be another thing you want to consider. There's also agent recommended. Agent recommended works like this. If, let's say you will use Cindy. So Cindy sets up the perfect search for her buyer, okay? And they say to Cindy 9 times, we're only gonna live in St. Clair Shores. And so Cindy sets up a search in St. Clair Shores and they're not finding anything. Now Cindy's gonna automatically send those properties in St. Clair Shores because that's what's in the search. But let's say it's like me, and I just had this happen with Dawn Waldrop, who's a good friend of mine. She listed a house 1 street outside of St. Clair Shores. And these buyers, I swear if they said it once, they must have said it 40 times. They said, Colleen, only show us stuff in St. Clair Shores. Well, you know where they bought, 1 street outside of St. Clair Shores, right? That's how it happens. But Dawn had mentioned that she listed this house. When I saw the photos, I knew it was perfect for them. Sometimes we, the agent, especially with a shortage of inventory, we know what maybe they were originally looking for may not be what they end up buying. So she mentioned she's listing the house. I saw it. Sure enough, I did an agent recommended, which shows up in their site and says your agent recommends this. Didn't automatically show up for them because remember, it was outside of what I had put in as their search. So now they see it, we scheduled it, and we literally wrote the offer in the kitchen and we closed it up. So sometimes we, the agent, end up knowing more about what the buyer's going to end up buying than they do originally. So that's what the agent recommended is for. So there's some cool workarounds, and I'm going to show you kind of how that looks in just a couple of minutes. This is not a Collab Center class, but I do kind of want to give you a taste because if you like it, you're going to want to take the Collab Center class. You can learn step by step how to set all these things up so it really works so much better for your buyers and they don't miss anything. Because truly in this market, if they miss a house and they see it the next day, they may not be getting it. I mean, unfortunately. Okay. So back to our searching. So we're entering in our criteria here. We're putting in the number of car garage. We're putting in if they want a minimum of 1,000 square feet, whatever it happens to be. And we're now dwindling it down. But as you can see, we got a whole lot of listings here. And why? Well, because we haven't put in any location. Boy, there's a day there would be a whole lot more listings, period, by the way, if we didn't put in a location. But if I wanted to now go in and put exactly where we're looking, well, I could do that little trick I showed you and I could go up to area and I could enter that in. But what if they're very specific? What if they're looking in very specific areas? Maybe I want to use the map searching because I want to be more exact. So let's take a look. When you are working with a buyer and they're very specific on where they want to work or where they want to live, maybe they want to be close to work, you can click right into that map search and it's going to open up originally, that X that you're looking at actually opens up to where your office location is. By the way, you can change that in your preferences if you want it to open up somewhere else. But in this case, this buyer is saying, you know what, I want to live in a particular subdivision, or maybe they want to live east of, east of Hayes, and they want to live north of Hall, and you can actually draw out the exact area that they want to search for homes in. So let's actually do that. By the way, I don't know about you, but as I do the maps, if you're like me and for whatever reason, when you're trying to pinch in, all of a sudden you're looking at all the continents and you're thinking, oh my gosh, why am I looking at Africa? Here's an easier way. You can go up to this center search. You could type in a city. You could type in an address. I'm going to use my old standby address to show you some examples here. Maybe maybe you want to put in their work address because maybe they've mentioned they don't want to live more than 10 miles away from where they work. You can actually put in an address, a city, a zip code. comma. Now what I do is I do the address, and by the way, leave off the drives, the ways, the places, but I'm going to do the address, comma, the city, and I'm going to click on that magnifying glass. What that's going to do is that's going to locate where they're working or where that address is. And now I can do a couple things. Maybe they want to live within 5 miles, or maybe they want to live within 1 mile of work. I can go in, click on search radius, and it's going to draw that radius right out for me. But let's say your buyer is very specific. Let's say you've done a 5-mile radius, but they don't really like a particular area. Maybe they don't like the northeast corner of that city or that area or even that county. You can draw a shape even on a shape. So let me show you what I mean. So let's say that we did a 5-mile radius from where they work, but there's this area by the train tracks that they're not really fond of, or maybe their mother-in-law lives over there and they don't want to live too close. You can actually go up to your drawing tools, and I'm kind of a big fan of the Paragon here, and you can actually exclude an area. So I'm going to say I want to exclude any properties in their search that fall within this area. How do I do that? You can go up to Edit and simply change it from include to exclude. Now, anything that falls in that specific area is going to be excluded. They will not have to see it. So if they tell you again and again that there's this one section that they don't like, but you've set it up on auto prospecting, well, what happens is they get everything that they've clearly expressed they did not want to see, right? And that would not make you look good. So what you want to do is you want to actually pinpoint the area, and then you can always exclude something that they may not want. All right, so I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to remove that particular shape, but let's do some more inclusions. So let's say that this particular buyer said to Franca, I want to live east of Hayes Road. I don't want to go south of 18. I don't want to cross over Garfield, but I'd like to stay just south of Canal. So you can draw the exact area. And as you can see right here, there is a property that is active in that area. If I want to see more details on it, I can click right on the MLS number and it will take me right to that specific listing ticket. There's some other things too, though. Some of these are very recently added, but you can actually add up to 10 shapes on your map. What I like about this is I just recently had a buyer. He was a volunteer firefighter. And because he was a volunteer firefighter, they required him to live within the city limits. Okay, so he could not live one street outside of that particular city. So how, if you were searching like this, how would you know where that city would start and stop? It would be kind of confusing, right? So let's say you're looking at your map and he has to live in Clinton Township or he has to live in Sterling Heights because he's a firefighter for that city. How do you know where the actual city lines would start and stop? Well, it would be to go to the layers and you can actually apply the municipality lines onto your map. So I can say, okay, I want to see where a city would start and stop. I want to add the municipality lines so that I can see that. So I'm going to label them. And I'm going to zoom out a little bit so you can kind of see it. It's going to actually show you where those lines are going to start and stop. You can also do parcel lines on here. And by the way, there's a little guide here that will also tell you these things, but it will show you where lines will start, where lines will stop to make it really easy. If there's a particular city that you wanted to add, you can do that here too, but it will basically label it and show you where it will start and stop. The next thing is parcel lines. So I'm going to uncheck this. Let's go into parcel lines. Now, the thing about using these is you do have to remember to zoom in and out, especially for parcel lines. You have to get very, very close to be able to see the parcels themselves. So as you can see, there's parcel lines here. If I want to add those parcel lines on, I want to add that labeling, I have to zoom in close enough where when I click on a parcel, it's actually going to show me those things. So you can hit show labels, but don't be afraid to go up to the layers and use those to be able to pull in the municipalities, to be able to pull in the parcel lines. And I'm not sure exactly what the DMP error is, but Debbie will hopefully get back to us on that. All right, so we've drawn our area. Another thing that you may want to consider, I'm going to try to zoom back out so I can show a little bit more of this. But as we're drawing our shapes on the map, if your buyer says, well, you know what, maybe you're showing houses an hour away and your buyer kind of wants to actually review the neighborhood ahead of time. We all see this little yellow Google guy on here, but I have to be honest, I had never used him before. But when you're going to show properties across town, he comes in pretty handy. So I'm going to grab this little yellow Google man here, and I'm going to throw him on my map, and it will actually tell you where you're going to set him in front of. It's actually showing you the address. But here's what I like. If you're looking for a specific listing, I can actually, because I had typed in that 41539 Wessel into our address box up here, it actually puts a flag on the listing for you. So you know exactly where that listing is. You can, of course, walk down the street. You can see the neighbor to the left. You can see the neighbor to the right. And it allows me to basically preview an entire neighborhood to make sure it's something that my buyer would be interested in. So again, you can type in any address, and it will actually allow you to walk down the street and check out that neighborhood without spending gas. And as expensive as gas has been, we kind of want to make sure that we're not unnecessarily driving to other locations that we don't have to. So the nice thing is you can actually, as you can see, you can do a 360 view. You can check out the entire neighborhood. You can walk down the street, and your buyers can do this in the collaboration center too. So they can actually see homes to the left, homes to the right, to make sure that that would be a neighborhood that they're actually interested in. One of the recent changes that they made I think about 2 years ago, was it used to be you'd have to always go back. And a lot of times it would, if you hit it too many times, it would close you out of the browser. Kind of frustrating. Keep in mind, you don't have to do that anymore, because it has those 3 tabs open at the top all the time. If I want to jump back to criteria, maybe I forgot to take out the leases and I want to change that, I can actually jump back to criteria. I can jump back to my map search, or I can jump to the search results right from here. So basically, when navigating your map, again, you can draw up to 10 shapes on your map where maybe your buyers are interested, and you can be as specific as you like. So if there's a particular neighborhood that they're interested in, you can actually draw out that neighborhood. The reason that I like to point that out is I was teaching a class the other day up in Flint, and one of the people attending the class stood up and said, I think Paragon is broken. And I said, well, tell me why. And she said, well, I live in this particular subdivision. There are 8 houses for sale in the sub. It was a large sub. And she said, but only one is showing in Paragon. And I said, well, tell me how you're searching. And she was putting in the subdivision name, but subdivision up there was not required. So unfortunately, any agent who didn't put in the subdivision, she wasn't pulling that up. So a quick tip is, if you are searching a particular subdivision, you're much better off to draw out the subdivision, because then it uses the geolocation. It doesn't matter if the agent didn't bother to put it in. It's actually using the geolocation to find the properties, so you're going to find all of them. So sure enough, we did that example in class. She showed me, she added the Swan Creek subdivision in. She pulled up one property. I said, okay, now let's try it by mapping it out. Sure enough, as soon as we did that, all 9 properties properly appeared. So keep in mind that when you're searching things like a subdivision, you don't want to go along with agent entry. You want to make sure you're pulling everything, especially in this market. A better idea is to literally draw out your search area. Remember, you don't have to search in one small area. Buyers might be looking with the low inventory in one city. You might want to jump over to another city, and you can do that by simply moving your map and then redrawing your shape. Okay, and again, you can do up to 10, which makes it pretty easy. Lastly, once you have, if you've forgotten any criteria, you can go ahead and pull it in. I'm going to pull up a few more here just so I can show you some examples of setting up your search. So we're going to use that Sterling Heights area. I'm going to click on Sterling Heights. Let's see how many results. So we have 10 actives with their criteria in Sterling Heights. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hit search. I've now pulled up those properties. And if I wanted to, let's say, send them over or I wanted to text them out, I could select them, hit the share button, and I could quickly text them over to a buyer that I might be talking to. Well, let's say I'm looking at a couple of these and I go, oh, you know what? I'm probably not going to send them this one. It's, built before 1960 or whatever it happens to be. Maybe I just want to select 3 or 4 of these. I'm going to actually go in, select my couple that I want to send to them. And instead of, because I have a little OCD, I hate the messiness. If I only want to see those specific listings, I can hit the checked box. I can literally now just see those 5, and I can text those 5 right over. So I'm going to go ahead and hit text. I could go ahead and send those to a contact I already have in the system, or I could add a brand new contact. So maybe I want to send this to Sally Smith. And I want to put in their cell phone number and I want to save it and I can send that message right out. So it's very easy to text listings once you've found those results. But as I mentioned, really in this hot market where there's just not enough inventory, what I'd rather do is I would rather save this search with all of the criteria that I put in, and I would rather set up the collab center. That's that automated way of getting those buyers, those properties right away. So in order to do that, and by the way, this is not a Collab Center class. We have a whole class on that. Debbie teaches a great Collab Center class where she'll go into how to set up a buyer, but also if they're selling a property with you, you can associate it, how you can add multiple parties, use the CRM functions. So there's a whole lot you can do. I'm just going to kind of touch on a couple of the basics though. So I've got these 5 properties. I'm going to send those over to my buyer, but I want my buyer to see an interactive experience. I want them to favorite things. I want them to be able to see the street view. Like I showed you, we're walking down the street. I want them to be able to see seller's disclosures and lead-based paint disclosures. I want them to see those things through me because I am the agent. So what we're going to do is we're going to go up to this save, but we're going to do a save search as, okay? So we're working with the buyer. We want to set up this automated way easily to get those new listings over to the buyer right away so they don't miss any properties in this market. So I'm going to say we're going to call this Franca's buyer search. Okay, so I've named my search, but there's a second part. Not only do we fill up the search information, but now we want to tie it to the buyer who's going to get the results, right? So we are going to say this is Franca. We're just going to make it Franca Smith. And I'm going to put in Franca's email address or the buyer's email address. I'm going to use Debbie's trick here with the mailinator.com. All right. So I've now actually put in the email address for the buyer who's going to get those search results automatically. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to save that. So what I've done is I've saved a search with what that buyer's looking for. I've now tied it or married it to the buyer's contact information. The last thing I have to do is just click this save and notify. This is then going to welcome my buyer into this automatic search. So here's the cool thing. Right away, they're going to see those first 10 matches. I'm going to send a nice welcome that you can actually customize the message for in your preferences, but I'm going to tell them, hey, great news. Don't use those other search sites like Realtor.com and Zillow and all those others. Use this because it's the actual MLS. It's the back end of the MLS. I set you up a login just like I have as an agent. A lot of times when you tell them you're setting them up with the same tool you have as an agent, they get more excited about it. And I also tell them that the information is much more accurate. It's not a feed. It is the actual MLS information. So within 30 seconds of something going pending, they're going to see it that way too. It's not depending on a feed, which may take a day or 2 to get updated, or sometimes not at all. So at this point, I'm going to send them the welcome out. But let me give you a quick tour of why this system is so good. So let's say for a moment, I'm just going to close this. Let's say you want to know, did your buyer log in? Have they logged in? Have they favorited any properties? Every time they favorite a property, it notifies you via email as the agent. But how do I see it? Well, I'm going to see it by simply going to the contact record, view or manage my contacts, and I can see everything I've set up here. Now, this is where it gets really cool. So I'm going to use my real life buyer today. Although every time I do this, I always end up favoriting something that they didn't want to see. So I'm going to try to not do that today. But I'm going to look at this particular client. If I want to see what their collab center looks like, I can literally click on view. That's going to take me into the same site that they're using. So I'm going to see it just as they're seeing it. I'm going to see exactly what got set up for them. The collab center looks like this. I can quickly see how many things they favorited. I can see new matches that got sent to them. So let's say that they're looking at this new match on Prospect, which they just actually favorited today. They can click into the details of Prospect. They can see the house. They can see all the interior photos in that gallery style view. By the way, they're seeing them in the highest resolution in the state of any other MLS. So that's always good. And they can also put in questions or comments that they have. They can see all of the details very easily. They can see lot sizes, room measurements are all here. If there's an HOA fee, what's the history? They can use a mortgage payment calculator. They can see all of that information right from here. They can also use the map view to walk down the street. They can use the street view, as I mentioned, if they want to see the neighborhood. So all of this is available. They can see the seller's disclosures, the lead-based paint disclosures. Everything is in front of them. But what generally happens at this point is once they favorited something, now I, the agent, actually get that email that tells me that they favorited a property. So I tell my clients, anything you want to see, just as you're seeing here, favorite it, and then I can set up a showing on it. So I'm immediately notified. I know when they're that's a house that they want to see. But now what generally happens is I got to pick up my phone. I got to call them and say, Mr. Schmagegi, when do you want to see this house, right? Then he has to check with Mr. Schmagegi. Somebody has to call me back, and meanwhile, the house has just gone pending, right? So that's bad. What's an easier way is if they favorite the house, they can actually put in the time that they'd like to see the house. So if you look, when we're looking at this property, so I'm going to jump back here to our main screen. When I'm looking at this property, as I scroll down, there is a place to request a time and date. Now, this does not schedule the appointment for them. What it does is it sends it to you, the agent, so you know when they're available and you can schedule them with one click. That's my favorite part. So let's talk about that. So they've gone in, and as you can see in this client, they favorited a few properties that they'd like to see this evening. So as they favorited them, I can see them here. By the way, you can set it up so a husband and wife or partners or investors, they can share a site, so they can put comments and notes in here. They can see it, to talk about it at home over dinner. But what's interesting here is once they favorited them, and I'm looking at it in context, I see that they have 5 that they have favorited. I can also see when they last logged in, which was today. I can see when they got their last notification. I can see when I added them. So all of that is displayed here. I can see if they're actually using it. I can also now go to where it says 5 right here as their favorites. And this is my favorite part. This is one of my favorite features that a lot of people don't know is here. If I click on the 5 that I know that they favorited that they want to see, I can literally drop all 5 of these into a showing time cart. If you're not familiar with showing time carts, I promise you it will be one of your favorite features. Before I show you the showing time cart though, one of the things that I recommend you add that does not come there out of the box, by the way, is agent name. Now I have to be careful how I say this, so I'm going to say it in the most diplomatic way possible, right? I have, in my 23 years of doing real estate, I had the pleasure of working with some of the greatest agents. I've enjoyed the transaction. They've picked up their phone when there's a question. They're really easy to work with. They are fantastic agents. We had the closing went off without a hitch. Those are the agents that I want to show first, right? Not that I wouldn't show another agent, but there are some agents that I've dealt with that if I never get another purchase agreement from them, I'm going to be okay with that. So because you end up doing 90% of the transaction, you know what I'm talking about? So in this case, when I'm getting ready to show properties, not that I wouldn't show another agent's property, but I might want to move the good agents to the top of the showing list, if you know what I mean. So in this case, you can go in and you can add the listing agent field. I can then see who has that property listed when I'm getting ready to set up my showings. So I can see right here under my agent name, you can see I've added that. I can see who has the property listed. I can also, as I'm scheduling these, I can see, oh, this one's already pending. Just got it today and it's already pending, right? So I want to take these 4 that I'm going to show. And of course, I want to just check the ones that I'm going to be working with because that's how my brain works, a little bit easier. And I want to go over to the actions button and I want to drop those in a showing time cart. Now I did all of that by simply clicking on that number 5. When you're using the showing time carts, and if you haven't used this before, this might be one of your favorite tools. If I'm going to show these buyers, these 4 homes this evening, I can actually pick my buyers from the drop-down list. So I'm actually going to be showing these to Travis and Trish. I am going to show them today. Now, here's where it gets really cool. So this is, of course, going to drop them in the way that the MLS had them. But that might not be the logical driving order, right? So I'm going to click on the smart route, and I'm going to put them in the logical driving order so I'm not driving from one end of town to the other. As you can see, this makes sense. I'm going to start off with 1 and 2 in Richmond, then I'm going over to Romeo, and then we're going down the ways to Sterling Heights. But it's putting them in the logical driving order. It will also show, and I didn't grab one, but because there wasn't one, but sometimes you will have that they are a go and show. It'll show you the appointment type. So if we're running out last minute, I might want to start with a go and show because I know I'm going to get those lock boxes immediately. You can also drag and drop those properties into a different order. But what I like about this is it also shows me drive time. As you can see, it's going to take me 21 minutes to get from property 2 to property 3. So if I have a long drive time and there's only a 30-minute appointment window, well, I certainly need to adjust my schedule to make sure that I'm fitting in that window, especially with more and more electronic lock boxes, because many of those you only get a 15-minute window. So if you're an hour late, you're not getting in without having to reconfirm that appointment. So this allows me to see what the driving time would be. It also shows me blackout times. So I can see right here, there are some possibly other showings scheduled or blackout times by the homeowner. So I know that that may not be, you can also see this one has a overlapping showings are allowed, but I can see things that are blacked out or other appointments that may be going on at that point. When I'm ready to pick my time, it will also show you if it is a central lock lockbox, it'll show here. I'm going to say that I'm going to pick the time that I want to show as 12:15 to 12:30 today. As you can see, there's a short appointment time. I want to make sure I've configured what I'm going to need for driving time here as well. Now it's showing me, okay, here's my appointment. I'm setting that for 12. So if I know there is only a 3-minute drive time, well, now I can say, okay, I'm going to go ahead and I am going to set this for 12:30 to 1 o'clock. And now I can go ahead and get that. Then all I have to do is hit all my requests at once, and they're going to be going out to either the listing agent in this case or the seller to confirm those. And then I will get those confirmations in. Of course, if you are like me and you get those challenging buyers, as I mentioned that I seem to, and you got your cart all set up, and now they call and they say, hey, guess what? We got 2 more listings we found we want to see. You can always go in and add another listing after the fact. And maybe you're taking them to lunch in between. Maybe it's a relocation buyer and you want to add the lunch restaurant address in. You can even add another address in. It does use Google Maps, but it allows you then to send your buyer turn-by-turn instructions. So they're not calling you and saying, hey, Colleen, which house are we seeing first? Which house are we seeing third? It actually will send it in the proper order. And then I don't have to keep informing them, okay, we're gonna see this house next, because they have it right on their phone. So showing time cards, if you have not used them, they're one of my favorite features. I love it because we did all of that. If you remember, just close this, I can show you. We started that whole process right from this number 5. We clicked on it, we opened up those listings, and now we're ready to show those. As I mentioned in the Collab Center, and there's a whole class on the Collab Center. This is kind of just a quick taste of it. And Debbie does an awesome Collab Center class. So you definitely want to check that out. But you can also do things like approve them. So if you want to check for my example of yellow siding, you want to make sure that no yellow sidings are going to that particular client. You have the ability to say, you know what, I'm going to approve this one, but not this one. And you have the ability to approve it. So they're only seeing the exact listings that you've already reviewed. So it gives you that extra control as the agent. As I mentioned, you can also do agent recommended. So when you're going into their Collab Center site, if there is a particular listing that you want to recommend, you can do that. So you can say, you know, I want to recommend a listing that's 2 streets over from where they were originally looking. You can actually add that in as an agent recommended. That pops up in their Collab Center site as something that they should check out. And again, I just had that actually work out in my favor. I closed a deal with Dawn. It was 1 street out of where they were looking. So hopefully that kind of makes sense. So I know I've covered a whole lot of information. I do appreciate your patience as we're wrapping up. But what we did is we recorded this class today. So if you missed anything, if you stepped away, hopefully to grab a call, you have an offer coming in. If you missed anything today, you can always go back. You can fast forward to that specific area of the class, and you can find all of these on our YouTube channel. Not only that, but we also have help documents that you can print off. We actually got them from the technology companies. Quite honestly, they didn't speak like agent, they spoke like tech people. So what we did is we actually wrote them, rewrote them in agent speak. We put big arrows so you know exactly where to click. But let me show you where these resources are. The first resource that I mentioned is our YouTube channel. If you go to resources, under the education section, you'll find recorded webinars. When you click on recorded webinars, that will take you to our YouTube channel. Right under our YouTube channel, and what Debbie did is she organized them by nice little playlists. So you can actually, if you're looking for Paragon tips and tricks, you can look for Paragon, the MLS system, click on it, and you're going to see all the Paragon classes. Looks like there's a CMA class in there too. You can actually type in Cloud CMA if you're looking for just those classes too. So let's say that you're looking for Cloud CMA. You can go to the playlist area, look for Cloud, and you can find those classes. There's everything from electronic lockboxes to Cloud to market stats to printing off mailing labels with real lists. There's pretty much everything. Showing time. All of that is located right on our YouTube channel. If you prefer to read, I prefer not to read usually when I'm frustrated, but if you're more of a reader and you just want a guide to follow along, where do I click to do X? You could also go to our MLS documents, and you won't see all of these. You will only see the My Real Source as I'm My Real Source member. But if you go to the education, or it says handouts and cheat sheets right underneath, you can actually click on that and it will show you all of the handouts. So if you're looking for, let's say, a Cloud CMA handout, you could type in the word cloud. It will then show you the Cloud CMA handouts that are available. It creates a PDF for you, so you could save it to your computer or Maybe you just want to have it on hand. Maybe you want to have one at the office in case you're trying to do a CMA really quick. You want to have it handy. And basically, it creates a PDF that will show you exactly step by step where to click to create that. Okay. So I think that's about it. All right. Well, everybody, I hope you have a great day. Thank you so much for attending the webinar. Happy selling, and please go list some stuff because Lord knows we really, really need some inventory out there. I don't see any questions at this time, so I guess we can really go ahead and wrap it up. But thank you again, and happy selling, everybody.